I want you to picture two guys sitting in the same break room, same company, same job title, same $55,000 salary, same city, same age, 32. The first guy, Kevin, spends his lunch breaks watching financial advice videos from self made millionaires. He writes down their tips, he tries to follow their systems. Invest 20% of your income. Max out your Roth IRA. Build 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund before you do anything else. The second guy, Derek, has never watched a single finance video in his life. But 6 months ago, his older sister sat him down and showed him a simple system she built on a spreadsheet. Nothing fancy, nothing from a millionaire. Just a plan designed for someone making $55,000 a year. 20 years later, Kevin has $41,000 in retirement savings. Derek has $312,000, same salary, same city, same 2 decades. One followed advice designed for people who already have money. The other followed a system designed for his actual paycheck. That difference, $271,000, is not about discipline. It is not about intelligence. It is about whose advice you are actually following. Here is something most people never consider. The overwhelming majority of financial advice available on the internet comes from people who earn between $150,000 and $500,000 a year. Their frameworks, their benchmarks, their simple starter tips all assume a financial reality that does not exist for someone bringing home $38,000 after taxes. When a millionaire says just invest 20% of your income, they are not lying. They are just speaking a language that does not translate to a $55,000 salary. 20% of $55,000 is $11,000 a year. That is $917 a month. For someone whose rent is $1,200, whose car payment is $340, whose groceries cost $450, and whose student loan payment is $280, that $917 does not exist. It is not hiding somewhere in the budget. It is mathematically not there. So Kevin tries. He sets up the automatic transfer. It bounces after 2 months because his checking account drops below zero. He deletes the brokerage app from his phone, so he stops seeing the notification. He tells his girlfriend they will start investing next year when things settle down. He avoids the topic at work. He tells himself he will start again when he gets a raise. That pause lasts 4 years. My name is Marcus, and I spent 8 years figuring out why standard financial advice kept failing people who earn normal salaries. Not because the advice was wrong, but because it was built for a completely different income bracket. If you are someone earning between $45,000 and $80,000, and you have tried to follow mainstream money advice and felt like it does not work, subscribe to this channel and hit that like button, because what I am about to share changed everything for me. Here is what actually happens when you try to apply wealthy person advice to a normal salary. The system breaks in 3 specific places. The first breakpoint is the savings rate myth. Most financial content creators recommend saving 15 to 20% of gross income. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the median American household earning between $40,000 and $60,000 saves approximately 3.2% of their income. Not because they are irresponsible, because after taxes, housing, transportation, food, insurance, and minimum debt payments, 3.2% is what remains. The gap between 3% and 20% is not a motivation gap. It is a math gap. The second breakpoint is the emergency fund trap. Every mainstream advisor says build 3 to 6 months of expenses before investing. For someone earning $55,000, 6 months of expenses is roughly $16,500. At a 3% savings rate, That takes over 9 years to build. 9 years of zero investing. 9 years of missed compound growth. 9 years of following the rules and falling further behind. The third breakpoint is the investment minimum illusion. Many popular investment strategies assume you can consistently contribute $500 or more per month. At $55,000, after the emergency fund finally exists, consistent $500 monthly contributions require cutting expenses to a level that is not sustainable. So people start, stop, start, stop. Each restart loses momentum. Each gap costs compound interest. Let me repeat that because it is important. The advice is not wrong. It is designed for someone else. And here is what nobody talks about. The financial advice industry has created an invisible class system. On one side, there is advice for people who already have money. Max your 401k. Diversify into real estate. Consider tax loss harvesting. On the other side, there is advice for people in crisis. How to survive paycheck to paycheck. How to dig out of debt. How to build an emergency fund from zero. But the largest group of Americans, the roughly 104 million workers earning between $40,000 and $85,000, exists in a gap between these two worlds. They are not in crisis. They are not wealthy. They are earning decent money and watching it evaporate, not because they are doing anything wrong, but because no one ever built them a system for their actual income. Derek's older sister understood this. She had spent 5 years watching her own paycheck disappear into advice that never fit. So she built something different. She called it the $200 architecture. The core principle is this: instead of trying to save a percentage that does not fit your income, you start with $200 a month. Not 20%, not 15%, $200. That is 4.4% of a $55,000 salary. It is $46 a week. It is $6.58 a day. That number matters because it is the maximum amount most people earning between $45,000 and $80,000 can consistently redirect without triggering the start-stop cycle that destroys compound growth. Consistency beats amount. Every time. Here is the math that makes this work. Kevin, following millionaire advice, invests $917 a month for 2 months, then stops for 4 years. Then invests $600 a month for 8 months, then stops for 2 years when his car breaks down. Then invests $400 a month sporadically for the remaining years. His actual average monthly investment over 20 years comes out to approximately $162. Despite trying to invest more, his inconsistency means he averages less than Derek. Derek invests $200 a month every single month for 20 years. No gaps, no pauses, no dramatic restarts. At an average annual return of 8%, Kevin's sporadic $162 per month over 20 years produces approximately $41,000 because the gaps destroy the compounding chain. Derek's consistent $200 per month over 20 years at 8% produces approximately $117,000 from contributions and growth alone. But that is not the whole story. Derek's system has a second component, his sister called the raise capture rule. Every time Derek gets a raise, he increases his monthly investment by 50% of the raise amount, not all of it. Half. In year 3, Derek gets a $2,000 annual raise. He adds $83 per month to his investment. His new monthly amount is $283. His take-home still went up. He bought slightly better groceries. He did not notice the difference. In year 10, a promotion bumps his salary to $68,000. He adds $270 of the raise to his monthly investment. Now he is investing $678 per month. He still drives the same car. He still lives in the same apartment. But on the second of every month, his account quietly moves more money than Kevin ever managed to invest consistently. He never once felt deprived. By year 20, Derek's total portfolio at 8% average annual returns reaches approximately $312,000. Kevin, who aimed higher but executed inconsistently, sits at $41,000. The person who invested less per month ended up with 7.6 times more money. Not because he was smarter, because his system matched his salary. Think about that for a second. Kevin did more research, read more books, set higher goals, and ended up with less money. Not because he failed, because the advice he followed was never meant for him. This is called behavioral finance alignment, which means building a financial system around how people actually behave rather than how they should behave in theory. Research from the National Bureau of Economic Research shows that the single greatest predictor of long-term wealth accumulation is not the amount invested per month, but the consistency of investment behavior over time. Irregular large contributions underperform regular small contributions in over 70% of 20-year periods studied. Banks and financial advisors understand this perfectly, but have zero incentive to explain it. A client investing $200 a month generates lower fees than a client who invests $900 a month for a few months. The industry is structured to reward high balance clients, not consistent low balance ones. The advice follows the incentive. Here is what most people do not realize. The $200 starting point is not the ceiling. It is the floor. The raise capture rule is the engine. Over a 20-year career, the average American receives between 7 and 12 salary increases. If you capture 50% of each increase, your monthly investment amount roughly triples without ever reducing your lifestyle. That is the mechanism Kevin never learned from millionaire advice videos. Not because millionaires are hiding it, because when you already earn $250,000 a year, you do not need a system for capturing raises. You can just decide to invest more. When you earn $55,000, you need a system that removes the decision entirely. Let me tell you about a woman named Rachel. At 34, Rachel was earning $51,000 as an administrative coordinator in Phoenix. She had $11,000 in student loans, a 4-year-old Honda with no car payment, and exactly $2,300 in savings. No retirement account, no investments, no financial plan. Rachel had tried before, twice. Once in her late 20s after reading a personal finance bestseller. She opened a brokerage account, transferred $500, panicked when the market dipped 3%, and withdrew everything. The second time she set up a 401k at work, contributed 8% for 4 months, then dropped it to zero when her car needed new brakes. She did not think of herself as someone who invests. She thought of herself as someone who tries and fails. Rachel did not win the lottery. She did not receive an inheritance. She did not start a wildly successful side business. She simply followed a system built for her actual income. The first phase changed how Rachel saw herself. She opened a Roth IRA and set up an automatic transfer of $200 per month. She did not try to build an emergency fund first. She kept her $2,300 as a small buffer and started investing immediately. For the first time in her life, she had a plan that did not make her feel like she was already failing before she started. This decision alone put her 4 years ahead of the traditional advice path. The second phase removed the decision entirely. Rachel set her investment transfer to execute on the day after payday. Not at the end of the month when money might be gone, The day after. She never saw the $200 in her checking account. What you do not see, you do not spend. After 3 months, she stopped thinking about it. The transfer just happened, like rent, like electricity. The third phase came at year 2 when Rachel received a raise of $2,100. She increased her monthly investment by $88, bringing it to $288 per month. Her take-home pay still went up by about $87 a month. She felt richer and invested more simultaneously. That was the moment she stopped calling it sacrifice and started calling it her system. By year 5, Rachel's salary had grown to $59,000. Her monthly investment was $412. She had accumulated $31,000 in her Roth IRA. For the first time in her life, she had more in investments than she had ever had in debt. She told her younger brother about it over Thanksgiving dinner. He opened an account the following Monday. By year 12, Rachel's Roth IRA held $119,000. She was in the top 30% of Americans her age in retirement savings. Starting from zero at 34, she still drove a Honda. She still lived in the same apartment complex. But she stopped lying awake on Sunday nights, wondering if she would ever be okay. By year 20, Rachel's portfolio reached $287,000. She was 54 years old with over a decade of compounding still ahead of her. She never once invested more than she could afford. She never once felt financially stressed by her investment plan. She never once followed advice designed for someone earning 3 times her salary. She followed a system that fit. Now here is the practical framework. The system has 4 rules and they work regardless of whether you earn $45,000 or $80,000. If you are in your 20s or early 30s and earning between $40,000 and $60,000, start today with the $200 floor. Open a Roth IRA this week, not next month. This week, set up automatic transfers from your checking account on the day after your paycheck hits. Commit to the raise capture rule immediately. Write it down somewhere you will see it. Every raise, 50% goes to your investment. The other 50% improves your life. Within 48 hours, log into your employer portal and check if they offer a 401k match. If they match even 3%, contribute at least enough to capture the full match before funding your Roth IRA. That match is free money with an immediate 100% return. No investment in history beats that. If you are in your late 30s or 40s and earning between $50,000 and $80,000, the same system works, but the raise capture rule becomes more aggressive. Instead of 50% of each raise, capture 75%. Your lifestyle is already established. You do not need more lifestyle. You need more runway. If you have high interest debt above 8%, split your $200. $100 goes to extra debt payments. $100 goes to investments. When the debt is paid off, the full amount plus the freed up minimum payment goes to investing. Do not wait until debt is fully paid to start investing. The compounding you lose during the wait costs more than the interest you save. If you are in your 50s with little saved, hard choices become necessary, but the math still works in your favor. Start with whatever amount you can sustain. $150, $100, even $75. The key is never missing a month. Take advantage of catch-up contributions, which is the IRS provision allowing workers over 50 to contribute an additional $7,500 above the standard 401k limit. If your employer offers a match, maximize it immediately. Delay Social Security if possible, because each year you delay past 62 increases your monthly benefit by approximately 8% per year until 70. That 8% guaranteed return is better than almost any market investment. Here is something most people never consider about wealth building on a normal salary. The relationship between consistency and wealth is not linear. It is exponential. $200 a month for 20 years at 8% does not just double your money. It multiplies it by a factor of roughly 2.9. But the multiplier only works if the chain is unbroken. 1 year of pausing costs you more than the $1,200 you did not invest. It costs you the compounding that $1,200 would have generated over every remaining year. A dollar invested at 32 becomes approximately $4.60 by 62. A dollar invested at 42 becomes roughly $2.16. Not because the market performs differently, because time is the multiplier, and you cannot buy it back. Kevin is not a cautionary tale about laziness. Kevin worked harder at his finances than Derek ever did. He researched, he planned, he set ambitious goals. He followed advice from people who had achieved exactly what he wanted. But he followed a map drawn for a different terrain. Derek never read a finance book. He never watched a single guru video. He never set a goal to save 20% of his income. He just moved $200 on the second of every month and increased the amount every time his paycheck grew. 20 years. $312,000. No stress, no drama, no start-stop cycle, no feeling of failure. The system did not require willpower. It required alignment. Picture yourself 20 years from now. In one version of this future, you have been trying to follow advice meant for people earning 3 times your salary. You have started and stopped investing a dozen times. You have $40,000 saved and a decade of compound growth you cannot get back. You spend your evenings calculating whether you can afford to retire at all. In the other version, you started with $200 a month. You captured half of every raise. You never missed a month. You got your annual raise last month. You adjusted your automatic transfer without thinking about it. It took 45 seconds. That 45 seconds will be worth $23,000 by the time you retire. You have over $300,000 growing at compound interest with years still ahead of you. Both versions of you had the same salary. Both versions of you had the same bills. Both versions of you wanted the same thing. The only difference was whose system you followed. Most people watching this will close the video and search for another piece of financial advice from someone who earns 10 times their salary. A small percentage will open a Roth IRA this week, set up a $200 automatic transfer, and write down the raise capture rule where they will see it every payday. Kevin did not fail because he lacked ambition. He failed because his ambition was pointed at a system that was never built for him. Derek did not succeed because he was special. He succeeded because his system was built for exactly who he was. What you do with that knowledge will determine